I'm Laura Ingraham, and this is the Ingraham Angle from a still rocking Washington tonight. Now, we're going to get right into it. A tale of two futures. That's the focus of tonight's angle. You just witnessed 2 weeks, two parties' conventions, and two visions for America. Now, all week long, America saw a Republican Party that was hopeful and optimistic about the future, capped off by a soaring address from the president last night.
Together we will write the next chapter of the great American story. Over the next 4 years, we will make America into the manufacturing superpower of the world. The United States will be the first nation to plant its beautiful flag on Mars. We will rekindle new faith in our values, new pride in our history, and a new spirit of unity that can only be realized through love for our great country.
Then, much to the dismay of the media hall monitors, our Energizer Bunny president traveled to New Hampshire tonight with thousands lined up to see and hear him. Now, once again, the contrast between him and Biden is stark.
This is going to be, we are right now in the most important election in our history. Last night, it was my great honor to accept the Republican nomination for President of the United States. We're going to win. I believe I have the honor of running against the worst candidate ever put up by the Democratic Party. How do you get worse? I believe he's the worst candidate, the slowest candidate, and I mean in prime time he was the slowest candidate, which was a long time ago, prime time.
In Trump's America, we believe the best is truly yet to come, and this was said over and over by speakers at the RNC. It wasn't just rhetoric, though. They really mean it. And that buoyant, sunny outlook wasn't from celebrities who live behind walls and gates and have handlers, but from everyday Americans who have always been the focus of Trump's agenda for America.
President Trump's economic boon began helping dairy farmers across the nation.
When he sees something isn't right, he's fearless in fixing it. He listens to working people.
I was once told that the only way I would ever be reunited with my family would be as a corpse. But by the grace of God and the compassion of President Donald John Trump, I stand before you tonight, and I assure you, I'm not a ghost.
And contrary to what the long faces in the press claimed, did you see their faces last night? The president didn't run away from COVID. He ran toward the issue. He noted the great tragedy we've suffered, talked about his own friends who've passed away because of the disease, and the great strides we've already made. Now, again, the message, we're pushing forward with medical innovation. We've mobilized our... Now, on the other hand, at their convention, the Democrats painted a very depressing, gloomy portrait of American life. Did you know that you live in a horrible, rotten, awful country?
We call out and confront the original sins of this nation, the sins of slavery and racism.
It is the effect of structural racism. Let's be clear. There is no vaccine for racism.
History has thrust one more urgent task on us. Will we be the generation that finally wipes out the stain of racism from our national character?
Now, while the Democrats were trying to convince you that poor old Joe should be put in charge, they refused to address the elephant, or I should say the rabid donkey, in the room. The violence playing out in blue cities across America. Didn't want to talk about that during their convention. So the Portland riots, destruction in Seattle, shooting and looting in Chicago. Did they think, or maybe did they hope that swing state voters and independents somehow wouldn't see the video all over social media of all the burning and all the mayhem? Now, as I told you back in June, the Democrats had made a calculated decision not to address the violence and riots, as long as they thought that they were going to be helping them politically. And sure enough, the moment Don Lemon let it slip that some focus group somewhere was showing Democrat voter erosion because of the unrest, well, Joe and Kamala tried to turn the Titanic around.
We must always defend peaceful protest and peaceful protesters. We should not confuse them with those looting and committing acts of violence.
Burning down communities is not protest, it's needless violence. Violence that endangers lives, violence that guts businesses and shutters businesses that serve the community. That's wrong.
Talk about desperate and delusional. Now, it's too bad he and Kamala didn't have an entire convention week to condemn the riots, right? Oh, wait, of course they did. Now, Trump has offered assistance to every governor and every mayor grappling with out-of-control violence. And how did they respond?
First, I want to assure the president that Seattle is fine.
We have dozens, if not hundreds, of federal troops descending upon our city. It's not helping the situation at all. They're not wanted here.
Mr. President, bring those kind of troops to our city and try to take off. That's not going to happen in Chicago.
We're going to fight with everything that we have. Donald Trump and his minions are the architects of chaos in this country right now.
Wait a second. It's Trump with the architects of chaos. They wanted the violence to go on, Joe Biden claimed. Now, by that logic, did he enjoy these scenes last night after the festivities ended?
How do you feel about police killing black people? Black Lives Matter!
Now, I actually don't believe that poor old Joe likes these scenes. He doesn't want it all burned down and people hassled in the streets, but he's too weak to stop it. And by the same token, I think there are a lot of Democrats who are probably embarrassed about the party's unsavory alliances. Their devil's bargain with their donor class on outsourcing American jobs, placating China. And do I think most moderate Democrats want our cities to just be flattened? Mount Rushmore to come down? No, I actually don't, but it doesn't matter. They chose Joe Biden, one of the weakest candidates in modern history, as their nominee. And as Victor Davis Hanson said last night, Biden has become a prisoner of his own paradox. Because he himself has no energy, he tried to ride the energy of the far left all the way to victory on November 3rd, but now it looks like that wave has pulled him under. And a riptide of radicalism is drowning the Democrats. They have nothing to offer the voters. They can't solve the violence problem, and they're not equipped to fix it.
I ask you a simple question. How can the Democrat Party ask to lead our country when it spends so much time tearing down our country?
They can't bring back jobs when their trade policies lead to more outsourcing.
For 47 years, Joe Biden took the donations of blue-collar workers, and then he flew back to Washington and voted to ship our jobs to China. China supports Joe Biden and desperately wants him to win. I can tell you that upon very good information.
And the idea that Joe Biden's going to solve COVID? Oh, please. He said he's going to lock us down, if the experts say so, into years of economic decline, of course. And we know it'll lead to increased suicide, addiction, job losses. And Democrats' solution is to hurt kids by keeping them out of school during COVID and take away our simple joys like playing or watching football. None of that will solve COVID, but it will make our lives miserable. And so all Democrats have left is two arguments. Number one, America is systemically racist. And number two, Trump is bad. The RNC blew up that narrative, though, in a big way, showcasing stories from everyday Americans whose lives were impacted in profoundly positive ways by Trump's America First policies, including African American men and women. Now, this outreach has the Democrat ticket, I think it has it completely flummoxed, as we saw in this Today Show interview of Kamala Harris.
Compared to RNC's passed, there seems to be a larger number of black men front and center. It would seem as if Republicans perhaps see an opportunity here that Democrats don't see.
First of all, every vote needs to be earned. And Joe and I believe that. So when we look at the condition of black men in America, we know we still have a whole lot of work to do.
Wait a second. Your party has had decades to solve these problems as you falsely peddled that narrative that Republicans are racist. And now Trump was delivering results. And the Democrats only know one thing: reverting back to the same stale old narratives. The Democrats are the ones trapped in the past now, and spending time with them, it feels kind of like you're stuck in a student sit-in that never ends. Look at what their voters are doing to people just trying to live their lives.
Put your mask on now, huh? Mother tasty piece of
But it doesn't have to be this way. There is a normal world out there, and people in red states are already back to living in that world. School, work, sports, church, fellowship. I'm really excited about America in 2021 and 2022. I think the silent majority is stirring, don't you? Without COVID, Trump would have won in a landslide. But even with the virus, remember this: it's eventually going to go away, or we'll have better therapeutics or treatments. But it's no reason to toss America in a dumpster and set her on fire. That's what the Democrats are doing to their own cities. They're now at risk of being left behind for decades if they don't make serious changes now. But that's up to them. But they're not going to stop us from living our God-given destiny and reaching for the stars. They might have given up on America, but the rest of us are giving her our all. And that's the angle.